If you're shopping RVs, I'm sure you've noticed that in recent years, most manufacturers have begun using tankless water heaters in everything. But some manufacturers are starting to get away from tankless water heaters for a surprising reason. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the ugly truth about why these water heaters are so popular and what you need to consider before buying an RV that has one. If you're new here, my name is Jacob. I'm an RV technician and I've got a bunch of free resources for you on my website, including a quiz that will help you identify what RV appliances are going to be best for your camping style. Now, before I get into the ugly truth about tankless water heaters, first I'm going to talk about some of the pros. The first and most obvious pro is that if you have full hookups and you want continuous hot water, that's where these things shine. If you got a bunch of people camping and everyone's wanting to fight over the shower, no one's going to run out of hot water the way you do with a tank type water heater. The second pro in my mind is that they are easier to winterize than a tank type water heater. With most tankless water heaters, you simply put your RV antifreeze in the system and pump it through the hot water pipes, and it's winterized. There's no drain plug, there's no tank to rinse, there's no bypass valves on most of them. And yes, I said most because Truma Aqua Go does have bypass valves, even though it's a tankless water heater. So don't hate on me in the comments. The third pro of tankless RV water heaters is just that they're cheap. To give you some context, you can pay $1,000 for a tank type water heater or like $300 for a tankless water heater. The primary reason that RV manufacturers have been putting these in most new RVs is just that they're cheap. This is an RV manufacturer's dream come true, because if you think about it, they don't give you a discount for putting a cheaper appliance in. What they're telling you is like, hey, look at this feature, endless hot water. This is a free upgrade, while they're just pocketing extra profit. The truth is, there are some very serious downsides to tankless water heaters, which is why some manufacturers have recently begun to get away from tankless water heaters and go back to the trusty old tank type RV water heater. The first downside is they are just terrible if you're, washing dishes. Every time you start and stop the flow of water going through a tankless water heater, it has to go through a startup cycle that takes a little bit of time before it starts producing more hot water. So when you're turning water on and off, just washing and rinsing dishes, you get cold spots. People ask me all the time, like, hey, what's wrong with this water heater? I'm like, it is functioning as designed, unfortunately. This leads me to the second downside. They just are really bad if you're trying to conserve water in general. Now, this really mostly only applies to people who are boondocking or camping without full hookups. If you're trying to make the most out of the amount of fresh water in your freshwater tank, it's hard to do that with tankless water heater and get consistently hot water. Now, people have asked me a lot about something that Forest River puts in a lot of their RVs called the shower miser. There's also a sink miser. Does this actually help with this problem with tankless water heaters? With the shower miser, it allows you to run the water long enough to get hot water to the fixture while recirculating it back to the freshwater tank. While this is a good solution for the water conservation problem, it's almost impossible to retrofit on most RVs because it requires additional plumbing. The third downside that surprises a lot of people to learn, because no one talks about it when you go talk to the salesman, is that these tankless water heaters usually do not work above about 4,500 feet of elevation. On a recent consulting call, my clients were telling me that this camper they were looking to buy, they were going to be using to visit their daughter in Colorado and their grandkids. And I was like, yeah, but you're just not going to have hot water there. Their salesman had failed to mention that water heater would not operate above 4,500 feet of elevation. In other words, the very place they were going to. Propane appliances have to mix the propane with fresh air, and the air to fuel ratio matters. When you go to high altitudes, there's less air, less oxygen, so you actually have to change that ratio of propane in order for it to burn correctly. I had a client, the dealership quoted them $1,000 to rejet the water heater to work at high altitude, and another $1,000 to rejet it to work again when they come down out of the mountains. I had another consulting client who was also planning on camping at high altitude, and they were asking about retrofitting a tank-type water heater. It's not just as easy as swapping out tankless for tank type. Retrofitting a tank type water heater becomes more difficult when the RV was only built with a tankless water heater because there's not a 120 volt alternating current power supply to the water heater. Tankless water heaters just run off the battery and propane. They don't need an extra circuit breaker with a dedicated 15 amp circuit. The fourth downside is that tankless water heaters are a very high propane usage appliance. The thing a lot of people don't know about propane is, especially when you're running on an RV with small propane cylinders, is that the amount of propane that can come out of those cylinders actually goes down whenever it's cold outside, and it goes down even more when the liquid level in that propane cylinder gets low. So when you stack a bunch of high propane consumption items like your furnace, your tankless water heater, and in some cases a dual fuel generator that runs on propane, and then they're trying to draw off of one of these little RV propane cylinders, a common issue is that they're overdrawing the cylinder and everything will quit working. The fifth and final problem I want to talk about is just the overall reliability of tankless water heaters. One manufacturer I've heard of has intentionally decided to stop installing them altogether. The issue is with the heat exchanger, where it actually heats up the water as it's going through. When that copper heat exchanger gets hot and cold and hot and cold, they develop cracks because they're cheaply made. It's very thin materials. And when that heat exchanger cracks, you're getting a new water heater. The silver lining here, folks, is that these tankless water heaters are often cheap. So getting a new one isn't going to hurt the bank account as much as getting a new tank type water heater. If you haven't taken my RV shopping course yet, in it I talk about appliances like this and how I grade them as a technician from a reliability standpoint. I'm in the process of updating this course to include some newer technologies that are on the market. And when I make that update, I'm going to be raising the price. So if you've been on the fence about getting my shopping course, now is the time to do it before the price goes up. I think it's important to note, for many people, these work well enough. If you winterize them correctly, if you're camping occasionally, if you're camping at low altitude, and if you're not boondocking, it's all the harder use scenarios where people are running into issues where tankless water heater just isn't all the hype that the salesman will lead you to believe. Click here to watch me go review RVs undercover, or click here if you want to watch my video about my 10-step process for avoiding lemon RVs.